last 24 hours with the announcements of the M4 Max, and I made a video about that. Did a live stream as well yesterday. So if anyone's watching both of these live streams, well, I hope you have you're not permanently online like I am. Maybe go outside, touch some grass or something. But yeah. Anyway, today I thought I'm going to continue the tradition of the last 4 weeks, 5 weeks. I've been doing live streams on the Thursday morning UK time, and so it's something that I want to keep going. I think it's quite interesting to be able to interact with an audience and talk through some of my thought processes when making a video. I think that's been extremely helpful, especially yesterday when I did the live stream. It really informed what I actually said in my video quite a lot. So good morning, Zarish. Hello from Singapore. So it's nice being 8 hours ahead. So what is it, like 4 p.m., 5 p.m. in Singapore? Ah, love Singapore. It's great. I miss the hawker centers. I really like how British and Chinese it is. It's great. Love Singapore. Love the food. Love the chili crab. Love the ice cream sandwich hawker vendors. Oh, anyway. Hello from France, Antonin. Hello, Appleseed. Hey yo. Monster Hunter Wilds. What is, oh yeah, I don't think that works at the moment. Monster Hunter Wilds. Is that a new game, right? Monster Hunter Wilds? It's a new one, right? Okay. What is Monster Hunter Wilds? Because I saw a post on that earlier as well. So it's good to see people are coming online. Oh yeah, there's like a demo come out, right? There's a demo at the moment which is live at the moment, I think, which is cool to see. Anyway, today I just thought we'd do something a bit more normal. Actually, no, before we do this, let me look at no, what is Monster Hunter Wilds? It's a big deal, right? I think someone tried to get this to run earlier. Well, Monster Hunter World works perfect, but not Monster Hunter Wilds. Yeah, that's different beast. Okay. So yeah, today I thought I'd do something that people ask me a ton of, and I haven't officially come out with a response on this, even though Whisky, a Windows gaming translation there, it's been out for over a year now, and it's made by a very active member of the community called Isaac. And not only does Isaac provide support on Whisky, he also does well, he did a lot of work on the Regix Metal backend and other contributions like that. As a young guy who's making his mark on the Mac gaming world, and produced Whisky, which is basically a Windows translation there, which is extremely similar to Codeweaver's CrossOver. So a lot of the kind of discourse around Windows gaming really comes about because Whisky is it's completely free, and you can use it to do basically Windows gaming on a Mac, and you don't have to pay for a license from Codeweavers. And I haven't really covered Whisky at all. In fact, I've never actually installed it, which is going to be interesting today. I'm going to give this a go today, and maybe talk through some of the reasoning, some of the differences, and some of the reasons why you might want to use one over the other. I'm trying to withhold judgment because I haven't actually used Whisky. I just know a lot about it, and the Whisky wine as well is used as the basis of a lot of different Windows translation layers on the Mac. Where's it gone? Isaac also did a very illuminating infographic a few days ago, which has been drowned out by all of this M4 Max stuff and Cyberpunk 2077 stuff on the subreddit. But if we go back in time to like a couple of days ago, there was a very good post by Isaac, which I'm going to find now. If I scroll back, I feel like it was yesterday, but yeah, here we are. The wine ecosystem explained. I I I feel like this infographic is helpful in that it's better than nothing, but I think it's more like a version 1. Yeah, so you have a lot of kind of misunderstanding. Not misunderstanding. This infographic is good. It kind of just shows everything, and it shows like everything's based on wine. CrossOver is a closed source piece of software that contributes to wine. But I'll try and explain this a little bit in more depth. And my hope is that this live stream is going to help to kind of focus the minds a bit more when I do make my video, because I want to do it in a tactful, sensitive way as much as possible. So it'd be quite interesting to go over this in as much detail as I can. But let me just go over the chat as well. How am I doing? Andrew says, Antonin, lots of exciting stuff this week. Cyberpunk 2077 native is definitely good support for gaming. Yeah, I think Cyberpunk 2077 is definitely a step in the right direction. I think it's interesting that, Game Porting Toolkit, the first ever, I think the big splash for Game Porting Toolkit when it was first released back a year ago, June 2023. Isaac, who's the creator of Whisky, made the tweet showing Cyberpunk 2077 working on his M1 Mac about 10 or 15 frames per second because he had a base M1 chip. It was running terribly, but it really explored the fact that Apple Silicon Macs can do gaming, but it's just that it's the software holding it back, and it'd be really interesting to see how well a native Cyberpunk can run compared to these translation layers. Now, I'm not actually sure how much better it'll run, because if a game is like GPU bound, then it won't necessarily make that much difference. But if it's CPU bound, then it'll make a huge difference because you don't have to use the Rosetta 2 translation layer. And then, on the GPU side, we don't have to translate from DirectX 12 to Metal. We don't have to use that D3D Metal translation there. So it's going to be very, very interesting seeing what the impact of Cyberpunk 2077. And I think it also have an impact on the way that Mac gaming is perceived as well, because all of these big AAA open world games are missing on a Mac, and Cyberpunk is definitely one which people can play through Game Porting Toolkit, through CrossOver, through Whisky. But having a native version that you can just go onto macOS Steam, just click on it, have it all work correctly, natively, all just synced up with your main game. Even having a very modded games, highly modded games as well, I think that's going to make a huge difference to how Mac gaming is perceived in general. So it'd be very interesting to see. Yeah, it's a shame to see. Nick says it's a shame to see how many games have been lost over the years. I think that's true. I can pin messages. I've not done that before. Let me try pinning this one. Yeah, it's a shame to see how many games macOS has lost over the years. Fortnite, Rocket League, CSGO, when it's in a much better position now. Yeah, it's a shame that these big live service multiplayer games all disappeared when just as this transition was happening. Maybe because of the transition, and ironically, the transition brought about, I think, a larger gaming user base, right? And also a renewed interest in Mac gaming, and yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Did I get a panicked call from the bank yesterday after the order? No, I didn't. I think I spent £11,400 on Macs yesterday. Maybe it's not out of the ordinary. Maybe they think, oh, this is normal stuff. Once a year, this guy just goes crazy on Apple Store. Okay, so let's focus the minds a bit now. Okay, so yeah, actually, let's not focus. There's one more thing that I want to get over before we start this stream in proper. So buying a new house today. It's going to complete later in the midday or something like that, and I'm going to get the keys. So I don't anticipate it happening for another 2 or 3 hours, but it could happen earlier, it could happen later. I probably stop the stream in about 3 hours or so anyway, maybe 2 or 3 hours from now. So if this stream ends relatively abruptly, that it's because of that. I don't anticipate getting through everything that I want to get through, all of the B-roll that I want to film with all of the games and stuff. So if that happens, basically what's going to happen is that I'll get a call from the agent or my conveyancing solicitor. They'll be like, "Oh, the house is ready. You need to get your keys now. Go visit." I'll be really happy. And luckily, because I'm in a rental at the moment, and I have to like rush. A lot of people, when they buy a property, they have to sell the current one in the chain, and then they have to go there, blah blah blah. Have to move on the same day as they complete. So the legal side is very iffy in the UK. But because I'm in a rental, I'm gonna move into the house that I bought, and yeah, it's very exciting. I'm really excited to set up my new office setup. This is like a temporary filming setup. There's nothing more permanent than a temporary arrangement. I'm looking forward to have like a proper full-on office, at least for the next year. It's still going to be a temporary office in the new place, but it'll be a permanent one later when I do a bit of renovation. Okay. So without further ado, let's do the thing. Okay, so let's do the main thing that I need to do. I've got all this crossover footage already, but I don't have any Whisky footage. So I've got Whisky loaded up here. Let's have a look. So not that familiar with this, to be honest. So we've got latest release from the 19th of September. So let's go. So if this is literally the first time I'm doing this. So if there's anything I need to know, then please let me know. So let's just download the latest version. Try and be as user friendly as possible. And okay, Whisky's here. Double click. Whisky. Let's drag it to the applications folder. Let's load her up. Okay. In my experience, Pi Studio says Whisky is a bit more fiddly, but still performs great depending on the title. Okay, interesting. Okay, so Rosetta is installed, obviously. Whisky Wine is not installed. Okay, next. So it's downloading Whisky Wine. Interesting. I think once I install it, I'm going to talk through the wine ecosystem a little bit. So I'll install this first. I'll get Steam up and running. Okay, so we have a... This kind of looks like the CrossOver's old interface. Let me just turn off my face for a second, so you can see the menu. Whoop. Yeah, so we've got Whisky, updates, and we've got settings, CLI, command line interface, we've got setup, okay, bottles, okay, good. Nothing too complex there. Okay, so let's create a bottle. So is there a simple way to get Steam? Bottle name. Let's call this one Steam. Okay, it's in applications, it's in library folder, create, and pin program. Okay, let's wait for this bottle to finish. Whisky can perform at parity with CrossOver or even better due to a newer wine version, but requires manual tweaks. Okay, so that's still creating. Okay, install programs. So does this mean I have to download the Steam installer? Okay, let me grab Steam then. Am I using M4 Max? Not yet. Friday next week, that's the day. Okay, I've downloaded the Windows version, of course, because I'm silly. Sorry, I downloaded the Mac version, not the Windows version. Okay, so I need to run a program. Let's run steam setup.exe. Okay, we're cooking. Good, good, good. Okay, let's see chat. I remember you mentioned online for Sparking Zero doesn't work on CrossOver, but I managed to run the game I might have with Whisky through Steam and online was available. Okay. I think there's been an update for Sparking Zero which allows the online to work. It certainly works. Apparently, it works on the new preview, CrossOver preview as well. Okay. Let's give permissions. Okay, that's still going. I'm using an M3 Max 40 gigabytes, 48 gigabytes of RAM, 40 GPU cores. So it's basically the high-end M3 Max. I'm going to be buying the M4 Max with the same numbers of GPU and RAM. So we'll see from there. Volume is very low. Let me turn up a bit. Is my audio volume better now? Let me know in the chat if audio is okay. Because definitely want my audio to be good. Sparking Online Zero is broken on deck. That's annoying. Okay. Let me look up chat while I'm... Okay, so this is still installing, right? I would love to see the base M4 Mac Mini. That's what I've ordered, the $600 the base Mac Mini, and also the Mac Mini with M4 Pro as well. The first time you launch Steam with Whisky, it won't make an icon for it. Once Steam opens for the first time, you can close Whisky and reopen it. It should appear. Okay, good to know. Taking its time. Let's pin this bad boy. Also, to properly quit out of Steam on Whisky, you have to choose to exit Steam from the Steam app, not quit out with regular Mac quit. Okay, there's a learning curve for this. Let's do it. Okay, while I'm waiting for this, right, seems to be taking ages. Let's talk a little bit about the ecosystem. Okay, let's go back to ecosystem. Okay, come back. Okay, so let's go back to where we were. Yeah, one ecosystem explained. Okay, so if you want to do any kind of Windows gaming on a Mac or a non-Windows computer, then you're going to be using Wine. So Wine is the open source software. I forgot what it stands for. It would be helpful to know. Wine gaming. Okay, the Wine gaming. It's basically Windows gaming on non-Windows software like Unix or Linux. So Linux, macOS, and BSD. Right. So Wine is a free open source tool. Right. If you want to use it, basically it's free to use. You can build it yourself. You can build applications yourself. You can distribute it however you want, pretty much. That's what it means to be FOSS. FOSS. What does the FOSS stand for? FOSS. Free open source software. Free open source. Yeah. Free and open source software. That's what it stands for. So Wine is FOSS. Right. Wine is completely free, and Wine is basically packaged into multiple things. So you might be familiar with the Steam Deck, of course. So Steam Deck itself can play all these Windows games because of something called Proton, which is basically Wine, but trademarked. Is it trademarked by Valve? Right. Wine stands for Wine is non-emulators. I think that was like a backronym or something like that. But basically, Wine is the software which allows Windows binaries to work on non-Windows operating systems like Linux, Unix, BSD, right, and macOS. And Proton is basically Wine as well. So and I'm not actually sure what the technical difference is, but I'm guessing that Proton is a trademark term, right? And it's basically specific to SteamOS and Steam. It's built into Steam. Yeah. Proton is Wine plus DXVK plus hacks. Yeah. And I think one of the good things about Proton as well is that it contains game hacks. Am I correct? So Proton is specifically updated so that Wine can be used on things like the Steam Deck and on Linux operating systems, and that it contains fixes which are specific to games. Am I right? Okay, and it's very much a Valve thing. So this is why Isaac has put this as a Valve thing. Let me get my highlighter out. Yeah, this is why Isaac calls it a Valve thing. Okay, and Proton is also developed by Code Weavers in partnership together. So if we go to the if you go to Steam Deck page with Code Weavers, you'll actually see that they are basically. If I go to Steam Deck, there's so much like stuff about the partnerships. Where's the main Steam Deck page? In my head, right? I'm not trying to do a proper explainer at the moment. What I'm trying to do is organize my thoughts in my head so that when I write my script, basically, that I'll be able to recall all this stuff properly. So the main Steam Deck website also contains a really good kind of explainer. Doesn't it have like a partners page? Steam partners. No, this is the actual partnership. But I remember seeing one about the way that Proton is put together. Something about like Code Weavers. Let me just find it. Steam. I'm sure that they had a partnership page. And they definitely did. I know that many members of Code Weavers do work on Proton. I wonder where the pages are. Okay, someone's saying the Steam bottle doesn't normally take that long. Andrew side, Joseph, the Steam bottle doesn't take that long. It might be only work if you drag the Steam exe into the C drive in Whisky. I see it also puts it in the right place. Okay, good. Let me do the explainer first, then I'll fix this. Okay. Maybe you're trying to find a blog post or something. It wasn't a blog post. It was like a thing which listed all of the Proton kind of partners. Maybe it's Deck Verified. It was talking about how Code Weavers are part of their. They've changed this website since I last looked at this. Software? Proton. Deck is Steam powered. It's really Proton powered. I remember there was a bit all about how Code Weavers, Steam Deck Proton. Let me see. I remember this blog post from when the Steam Deck first released about how Code Weavers. They call it Code Weavers Proton. It's really is it really Code Weavers Proton? It's more like Valve's Proton. Okay. And the point is that Code Weavers are a partner with Valve in the creation of Proton. And I'm presuming that there's a financial relationship, probably a really big one, between the Valve community and with Code Weavers. I do know that some of the main contributors from Code Weavers have appeared in Valve videos. So that's like, what is that guy called? Alex Proton Valve. It's a video explaining the technical aspects of the Steam Deck. Where is it? This guy is it called Alex? Was one of the main contributors of Proton. Let me find it. This is not it. I'm not doing a very good job of explaining what this is. And I don't think they've explained it here because I remember it was a bit more clear, like what it was exactly. Okay. Well, I will find the source eventually. But basically, Code Weavers and Valve have a very integrated relationship because Valve outsource and then they develop and also heavily outsource their kind of the development of Proton, which is absolutely essential for Steam Deck. So the Steam Deck, you can install Windows on it, but it comes with SteamOS. And I think arguably one of the big successes about the Steam Deck is the fact that it does use SteamOS. And it has none of the bloat of Windows. There's none of this privacy concerns. It basically runs a version of Linux that can run games, that can run virtually all of the Windows games that you want to play using Proton. So you don't need to. You can play the Windows games, and you don't need a Linux port. You can just play the Windows version through this compatibility layer, and it's kind of beautiful. Okay, and this happens because of code weavers. I'm going to try and find this video. I remember seeing this video before. Who are the main? Let me see. Wine and code weavers. Let me look at the Git. Look at the Git page. But, I'm trying to find this video because I remember seeing it ages ago. The wine project. Where's the is it app.tb? Where's their code base? Is it GitHub? Do they use GitHub? It's not GitHub. I remember doing this like a year or two ago. I can't remember how to do this. Steam Play. All of this has gone through a lot of different names. Where's that with code base? I remember being able to search the code base through their website. What was it? Code base, where have you gone? I'm terrible at this. Let me have a look. I remember being able to look at all the contributors. I made notes on this years ago. Like you could see like who the main contributors are and who. Let me see, developer. The code. Wow, there's all these people. Wow, there's so many like merge requests here already. Is that the guy Remy? No, it's not. Yeah, this is the guy, Alex. I remember this now, Steam Deck. Maybe it's a Proton video. Was it this guy, Alex? No, I do remember like a Valve. There was like a Valve explainer video with one of the Codeweaver stuff. He was definitely there explaining Proton. Maybe it's not this guy, but the other guy. I don't recognize these names. Okay, this is like a really boring stream. Trying to look for some obscure video, which I remember on the Steam Deck, the Steam Deck website, it did have it. So I used to grab all of these videos online to like get B-roll. It was like the Steam Deck developer video. It's one of these dudes. But here we go. This is it. This guy. What's this guy's name? Yeah, Pierre-Loup Griffet. So this video makes it look like. Let's mute this, right? So this is who does he work for? Oh, so he is actually a Valve coder working with Codeweavers. Interesting. Okay, well, I'm definitely going to try and remember this video for my notes. Oh, he's from Valve. Okay, so he's a Valve employee, not a Codeweavers employee. Okay, interesting. I like Elon Musk. Yeah. Okay, not this guy. Okay, back to the explainer. Back to this. Okay, back. So, despite not finding video evidence of this, I do know that basically Codeweavers and is a major contributor to Proton, and they also CodeWeave is a company. They also are a major contributor to wine. So I actually have an email from the former CEO, Jeremy White. So he actually left, retired a while ago. But one thing he said, which was quite interesting, just trying to read out here. They talk about. Let me get my highlighter out. Yeah. CodeWeavers only makes about 4% of all authors to the wine project. So, they contribute to the wine project. But despite only being 4% of authors, they've contributed to over 50% of all commits into wine. So I know that commits are not necessarily the best metric to gauge the amount of contribution towards a specific code base, but basically, wine is, I would say, majorly contributed to by the CodeWeavers company, right? So CodeWeavers are basically I guess I call them a commercial entity, I suppose, because they make money by contributing to wine, but they contribute basically to what is an open source project, right? So it's something that is free to use, right? But I'm guessing that they're also paid by Valve as well in order to develop Proton, and the Proton fixes also feed back into wine. So there's money involved in here, and there's corporations involved. I mean, CodeWeavers, I believe, is fairly large. It's like 60 or 70. It's not large in the software development world, but from my point of view, it's a company with a big payroll, right? With a payroll that needs to be sustained over long periods of time, right? And this company is basically responsible for wine, and of course, it's an open source. It's an open source project as well, right? But CodeWeavers do the majority of the heavy lifting. At least that's what the CEO said anyway. So CodeWeavers are basically responsible for making sure that wine works. And in addition to wine, they also contribute to like sub-projects like Wine D3D. And there's also a thing about DXVK as well. So DXVK is the DirectX to Vulkan translation layer. So DXVK is quite an interesting one because I think people suspect that it's very likely that the author of this, Doit Sujin, is basically contracted by Valve. This is like a core technology. This DirectX to Vulkan translation layer is like the core of Proton, really. Correct me if I'm wrong, because a few years ago I didn't know any of this. I'm not a programmer. I'm not really a Linux user. I understand these things to, I'll guess, a surface level. So if in the chat, if this doesn't make any sense, then let me know. Yeah. So DXVK is like a core component of Proton, right, and of CrossOver. It was the main translation layer used before D3D Metal came along. Okay, so DXVK also has, I think, an not publicly disclosed kind of commercial relationship, probably, right? Don't know that. And so these three things are okay. So CrossOver, DXVK. Okay. So the thing that threw the spanner in the wrench as well is the fact that we have D3D Metal as well. So D3D Metal, introduced by Apple's Game Porting Toolkit last year in 2023 in June, announced at WWDC. And what D3D Metal can do is that it can translate not just what DXVK does, which does basically DirectX 9, 10, and 11, but it can also translate DirectX 12. So the difference so if you wanted to use DXVK, which is what we used before, on a Mac, right? The Mac can't use Vulkan, right? So there's no Vulkan driver on Mac OS. So you have to translate, you have to use DXVK as one half of the component, DXVK, DirectX to Vulkan. And then in order for it to run on a Mac, you need a Vulkan to Metal translation layer as well. So it's called Molten VK, and you can kind of understand the naming scheme. We're melting Vulkan to make it into metal. Molten VK, it's a molten and fluid. And so you have to run these two translation layers. And what was kind of nuts about D3D Metal is the fact that DirectX 12 can now be translated. The first thing is the fact that DirectX 11 can be translated into Metal without that intermediary translation layer. So instead of two translation layers, we just have one. And then secondly, we can now translate DirectX 12 games to Metal directly. And what was quite interesting is that basically D3D Metal had far better performance for the majority of games. I think that the main reason for this happening is the fact that on the Apple side anyway, the fact is that Metal, the graphics API that Macs all use, is a closed source piece of software. So it's all closed source. So it just means that no one can peer or look inside and see what is actually going on with the source of D3D Metal. What's interesting is that Apple's probably has a lot more kind of resources to develop this translation layer. And ostensibly, it wasn't really used to play games. It was just used to do things like to do game evaluation only, right? So the idea is like you could evaluate games to see whether these games are suitable for porting onto a Mac or not. And the idea was that you could run your DirectX 12 game through D3D Metal, and then you can see, oh well, we're getting like 50% performance. Let's do a full native port that's ported fully to Metal. Let's use the Metal shader converter. Let's do the full process and get there. This is just like a stopgap just to see that it could work. And with like a little bit more work, you could get it working fully. And it's not designed to be bundled. It's not designed to be a Proton replacement. But it totally could be, right? It totally could do what Proton does. And what's interesting is that that's what we've been using it for. We can run games like Cyberpunk 2077 through D3D Metal. There's other games, Hogwarts Legacy, all of these Windows games that we're running now, like Ghost of Tsushima. All of that stuff is possible thanks to D3D Metal. But the problem is that it's using this closed source graphics API translation layer, which is really annoying. And what Apple also did was that they bundled GPTK, or Game Porting Toolkit, which also contained a version of Wine inside it. So what was interesting is that Wine was being used in order to facilitate this process, which is perfectly fine because Wine is a free open source piece of software. It basically means that you can use Wine in order to bundle it into tools like the Game Porting Toolkit. But what's kind of annoying is that D3D Metal is closed source. So Apple kind of using this closed source piece of technology for game evaluation, and they were bundling Wine as well. And what I was annoyed about was the fact that Apple were able to basically cut out CrossOver. So I haven't really talked about CrossOver yet. So what CrossOver is also a closed source piece of software. And CrossOver, I'll just open up CrossOver. Okay, CrossOver is kind of like a proprietary version of the Wine software, right? And it's I think on Linux it's not really used because the Linux side has been overtaken completely by Steam and Proton. But on the Mac side anyway, the most user-friendly way to use Wine is not necessarily to build it yourself, which is very difficult for end users to do. But on the CrossOver side, it's a relatively easy piece of software to use in order to install Wine. It has things like cross ties, which are bundled installers, which automatically install and apply fixes for multiple games. It's almost like Proton in a way, but it is closed source, right? So it means that you can't build your own version of CrossOver, right? That's all like proprietary trademark stuff, right? You can build your own version of Wine, but you can't build your own version of CrossOver. And I think CrossOver is like one of the main sources of income for code weavers. So if I go back to my email from Jeremy White, which I'll show it up here, I'll just show you. He says, let me just find the quote. This is from 2022, so it's a lot of references to like Wine 7, which is kind of ancient now. And yeah, he says here, without people buying CrossOver, there would be no co-weavers, and Wine would be in a much sorrier shape, right? So the idea is basically that you might be tempted to consider Codeweavers as maybe close to something like a charitable organization, but it's not really. But it's making and paying. There's a payroll of developers who have huge heavy lifting into Codeweavers into the Wine project, huge amounts of heavy lifting, and these contributions are free, so anyone can just use them. But on the macOS side anyway, the way that they raise funds for these developers is through selling CrossOver, right? So CrossOver is an integral part of the kind of Codeweavers income. And if like people stop buying CrossOver, then the Wine project would be put at risk, especially on the macOS side, right? So anyway, going back to what Apple did with the Game Porting Toolkit, I have a whole video about this, which I probably explained it like 10 times better than how I'm doing it now, rambling. But basically, Apple bundled their Game Porting Toolkit, and then they bundled this free version of this open source software, and they put in D3D Metal, which is this DirectX 11, DirectX 12 translation there. And basically this combination for several months like massively outperformed this, right? So there are a lot of people came in and said, okay, Game Porting Toolkit, we could just use this. We don't need CrossOver anymore, right? And I think that the problem is, right, that it's pretty obvious, right, that if everyone just starts using Apple's Game Porting Toolkit to evaluate their games, but actually just playing them instead, and then people stop buying CrossOver completely, then that means that contributions to Wine are going to slow down or stop. And then this has this kind of feedback loop where the Game Porting Toolkit, if this ever updates their version of Wine, is also going to suffer too and stop working, because Wine is something that needs to be continually developed. Just running something like Steam through Wine constantly has issues. It's a moving target, right? I mean, people are talking in the chat about Overwatch 2 breaking, okay, and that's something that constantly happens, especially with like live service games that are constantly updated, and multiplayer games. These things need to be like updated constantly, right? They're not things which are just build once and then forget. They have to be, so there has this kind of negative feedback loop. If people use this Game Porting Toolkit instead of CrossOver, then Wine suffers, and then this suffers too, and Game Porting Toolkit suffers, this method of running Windows games on a Mac suffers, and then the whole project kind of collapses in the long term, right? So you might be able to get Cyberpunk 2077 working like right now, but that Windows version of that game will stop working in a year or two based on some kind of messed up Wine thing that needs updating. And then what will happen is that the developer at CrossOver or Codeweavers won't be there because they won't be paid, and then Wine will basically suffer. All of the heavy lifting will suffer, and probably what would happen is like Valve would take over and they would stop. They don't care about the macOS architecture. They would just basically not provide an alternative to the macOS side. They'll just their interest is in getting Proton working for SteamOS. They don't care about any of that stuff. Okay, so that's Apple versus Codeweavers, right? And what was great, what happened a few months later, is that Apple started supplying D3D Metal. They changed the license, right? So that D3D Metal, they basically said, okay, we can now actually, before they wrote a very restrictive license saying, oh, this is closed source, you can't use it for anything except game evaluation, right? But then they kind of changed their minds, and then they decided, okay, well, actually, if you have a non-commercial project, then you can include it in your software. So and on the Codeweaver side, Apple started actually putting up. Yeah, what they actually did was they even supplied Codeweavers with early versions of D2D Metal, and then Codeweavers bundled it into CrossOver, and then they allowed CrossOver to use D2D Metal. There are also other methods to like patch patch it using CX Patcher, which is a project that came about around then. And then at around the same time, in June anyway, Isaac developed this software called Whisky. And Whisky is basically a graphical user interface for wine, right? And basically it's an alternative to CrossOver. And what's really good about it is that it is open source. So if I go to, let's see, Whisky GitHub. Yeah, you can look at the code and contribute and even fork it and everything. All that stuff is available to do. Okay. But it basically suffers from a similar kind of dilemma that you have with D3D Metal. So and Game Porting Toolkit in general, because if Whisky is able to do the things that CrossOver can do, so that's, I think mainly the thing is that it provides a good user interface, right? That's easy for end users to install and deploy. Even though this isn't working for me right now, what I'm going to do is quit out of that and reload it. Okay, that's come up now, Steam. Okay, so I'll play with this later. It suffers under the same issue, okay? Because if Whisky gets too good, right? If Whisky gets too good, then it means that people will stop using CrossOver and use Whisky instead. And I think that has kind of happened over the last year and a half, right? Is that people have used Whisky instead of buying CrossOver. When there's a free alternative, people obviously prefer the free alternative over CrossOver, right? There's no other. Even though you've bought this extremely expensive, Mac computer, there is a huge demand for free software to do what its proprietary closed source software can't do. Okay, and the risk here is that Whisky basically causes the same problems as Game Porting Toolkit. It's a free alternative to CrossOver, and people use Whisky instead. They never decide to buy CrossOver in the first place because it's too expensive, and so that causes the same feedback loop. If wine suffers, right, then that means that Whisky will suffer too, because there'll be no more updates to wine, not in the same degree anyway. And like a single person maintaining this FOSS piece of software cannot do what a large company of seasoned developers can achieve with the wine project. Yeah, so this is kind of why I kind of held off from Whisky over time, and I think that this is what a lot of people kind of understand as well. So one of the things about Whisky is the fact that it uses an older version of wine, so that's one of the big differentiators. And Isaac's gone on record saying like Whisky wine. Okay, let me find it. Whisky wine Isaac. I don't know what I'm going to find with this. Isaac said that he's going to be sticking with the original version of wine that was released at the time, which is wine 7.7. I don't think this is a good explanation, Lorenzo. It's like I've rambled for ages. I feel like I should have written this down. But the point of this thing is that when I do write it down properly, that I've got an actual thought process like laid out a bit. A lot of FOSS contributions are hesitant of large orgs contributing source due to this reason. What if they decide to fork the project and make it closed source? Grants are always preferred. Yeah. Andy Nath, that's probably true. I'm not really very familiar with open source development, to be honest. I mean, as an end user, this is like what I see, right? I don't really know what it's like to contribute, especially when there's like a juggernaut trying to do things their way. Codeweavers are not a... I don't know if they've ever done anything wrong or right, or how they're perceived in the world of FOSS contributions. But yeah, it's interesting. And anyway, yeah. So Whisky has that risk of overshadowing crossover. And there's a kind of intentionality, I believe, from the author to say that, oh, we'll just stick to version 7.7 of Wine. We won't upgrade to 9.2. So right now, if you use crossover preview or the crossover mainline version, you're using Wine 9 and then 9 point something, and then crossover preview uses Wine 9.2 at the moment. So crossover preview is the latest kind of nightly version. Not fully released to the public, so you can't test this on the free trial. But if you are a paid license user, then you can download crossover preview and you get access to the latest version of Wine. And even that small thing, like the difference version of Wine between 7.7 and 9.2, is pretty big, right? There are big differences in the compatibility between these two things, right? And I think that it is possible for Whisky's developer to, or any contributor to fix these issues, but they're already kind of fixed in crossover because crossover has the cross tie system, which automatically applies fixes for specific games. Like if you want to run Elden Ring, then it automatically does the thing where it launches the non-anti-cheat version of the game, right? Whereas I believe on Whisky you have to like do it manually. It applies like the audio fixes in Skyrim. It has a lot of things which work better. And I just want to show you a message from Dean GSenX, which talks about some of the main differences. So I did ask him like, what are the main differences between Whisky and crossover, like in terms of game compatibility. So yeah, the differences are relatively substantial. Okay, so we're talking about Battle.net, right? Now, granted, I know that Overwatch 2 is broken on both crossover and Whisky at the moment, but like a week ago, you could play Battle.net games on crossover and crossover preview just fine. Okay, the EA app. So anything that uses the EA app, I think. So the EA app is something required for things like Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and some other similar games. Anything that uses like an online EA component. IL2 CPP are these Unity games, right? Counter-Strike 2, Path of Exile. I know there's a native Mac version of this, but if you want to run the Windows version with some kind of mods, then that won't work. 2K Launcher, like the Mafia games, anything required .NET 6. So I'm not actually sure what that entails. Crossover Preview allows you to install Epic Games Launcher and GOG Launcher directly through the Crossover Preview. So it's going to come in a very near future. Fallen Order, Elden Ring, I just talked about. Hoyo Play Launcher, so that's Genshin Impact, Zenless Zone Zero, Honkai Star Rail. The Paradox Launcher, because you might want to run games like Crusader Kings through game porting through crossover instead. It can run faster. I know 1800 using the Ubisoft Connect. Now, Naraka Blade Point, I don't know about this, but very popular game which apparently works on crossover. And then Armored Core, so that's the FromSoft game. Baldur's Gate 3, you might want to run the Windows version because sometimes the patches are not updated between the Windows and the Mac version, and then if the versions are mismatched, then you can't play multiplayer properly together. Witcher 3, and then Sonic Frontiers. So that's quite a large number of games, and I think that there's a tacit acknowledgement. Well, there's an explicit acknowledgement that basically you don't necessarily want Whisky to work too well, because I think there's an understanding that Whisky will, if Whisky could do, well, let me just close this. If Whisky could do everything that crossover could do, then it would basically kill crossover. It will kill Wine development in a big way on the Mac. We don't have a huge user base on the Windows gaming on a Mac. It's not very big, right? It's very small actually. The numbers that I've heard are in like tech startup world, user numbers is probably tiny, especially compared to like Proton. Yeah, so that's Whisky, and yeah, a big part of the the kind of gimping of whiskies using what they call whiskey wine. So there's a version of whiskey which is kind of like blocked off 7.7 whiskey wine, and that's also used in something called Mythic as well. So Mythic is an alternate launcher that people in the chat ask about constantly, like Mythic, 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 and I don't really think that Mythic is particularly important. It's kind of like a launcher. It apparently doesn't support Steam yet. I haven't really talked about it much because I don't really understand a need for it. I haven't installed it yet, but I might do it in the future. This is the first time I've installed Whisky, so I'm not sure. Yeah, Codeweavers. Yeah, Andy Nath says Codeweavers are being so aggressive with CrossOver Codeweavers preview to compete with Whisky GPTK2. I don't think they're being aggressive. They're just developing features as normal. Yeah. Hello, actual. Good morning. Happy birthday. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you very much. About to buy a new house, and ready to go. So, anyway, I hope I've explained in the last, I don't know, 40 minutes, like why it's important to support Codeweavers and buy CrossOver, because I think that if you are in the market and you care about the future of translation layers and Windows gaming on a Mac, you should buy the license for CrossOver. And the thing is that the license for CrossOver is expensive, but there are discount codes. Of course, you can use my discount code, which is at the top of this video's description. But you can also wait for the big sales to come. So, like 3 times a year, probably there's substantial sales of at least 30%. And on Cyber Monday, which is the Monday after Black Friday, there's always a massive sale, over 60%, and you could easily buy, 5 years of CrossOver for like $100 or something like that. That's like 3 games, right? And you get that warm fuzzy feeling of knowing that you've contributed to the future of Windows gaming on a Mac, at least anyway. Okay. I should probably talk about Kegworks as well, which is a new project by DSNX, which is basically a successor to what was it, Wineskin, right? Wineskin is it's basically, I think, it used to be the more popular way of like you create your own instead of using a launcher type interface. So Whisky and CrossOver, they're both like, oh, let's make this launcher type thing where you install a launcher. What Whisky Wine is, or so not Whisky Wine, what Wineskin was, and what Kegworks is, I think it's more like you bundle your own, you bundle one game and you make like a port of that game. But underneath it's the same kind of structure. We're still using Wine, we're still using D3D Metal or DXVK and Molten VK, and it puts it together in one package. So it kind of behaves similar to like what a Mac port would look like, where Wine is like bundled into the application, but underneath it, it's all the same tech at the end of the day. It's all Wine at the end of the day, right? And it's quite funny just seeing all of this like alcoholic beverage related terminology. You have got Wine, Whisky, and Kegworks, and they all work by filling up a bottle full of wine. So that that's how it works. Tonio Geller, no, it's not $100 a year. If you go to the Codeweavers website, and then we buy now, right? It's like £60. If you use Apple Gaming Wiki new promo code, it's 20% off, right? So it's probably like about $50 a year for CrossOver Plus. Now, it's not a subscription, remember. It is a you get every new version of CrossOver that's released for the next 12 months, and you get to keep that forever. So you could buy CrossOver for 1 year and then potentially use it for several years later. And also this, if you renew CrossOver Plus, you get it for 50% off. So you can renew it for half of 60, which is £30 a year. And if you buy it on sale, which I highly recommend that you do, if you wait until Cyber Monday, the last Cyber Monday sale, okay, was I'll show you, was 60% off. Was a big deal. And that's huge, right? 60 And sometimes they allow you to discount the renewal as well. And then we had 1 year where it was like $8 a year or something, $9 a year. You could buy like 20 years of that and it will be less, well, not 20, but like 10 years of that for the price of 1 year. So you could easily take advantage of that. So CrossOver is not expensive, despite what people think. It's expensive if you buy it like right now, if you don't want to spend $48, $50 on it right now. Yeah, but that's my evaluation of the situation. Okay, let's actually do some whiskey gaming. Okay, do some actual comparisons. So I've installed Steam. I had to quit out of Steam in order to work that, to get that working. Run Steam. Can I run this? What's happening? So I quit. So I quit. Okay, so that's my explanation. Let me know in chat what you think about this. God, I took way too long to explain that. I have no idea how I'm going to make a video about this because I want to make it like succinct and punchy and also sensitive to everyone's like whatever like feelings. Why is this not running? Does anyone know what's happening here? Get back to trying whiskey. We want you to at least try it. We refuse to pay for CrossOver. Refuse. What's happening here? I'll quit out again and see what happened. So I installed Steam, right? And then why is it long? Normally on the CrossOver side, there's like a thing that happens. Geylang is my home. Okay, Geylang. Is that in Singapore? Because it costs the same as a AAA game. Well, if it's on sale, it's not the same as a AAA game. Look, I'm not saying it's bad to use free software. Like, I'm just saying that once you can afford it, you should buy it. Okay, you should definitely buy it and support Mac gaming in the going forward. And if one day you've used whiskey for years, and then it stops working, then you're gonna find that it's kind of our own, the demises of our own making, you know. Try creating Windows apps from Activity Monitor. Okay, let's see. Window. So these are the preloaders. That normally is the thing. The wine server. We'll just kill this. Okay. Something's happening. I saw something. Here we are. So I'll do a comparison of like on the screen here. I'm kind of, I've talked about the wine versions already, so I've done that. Okay, but I want to talk about Steam startup speed. Okay, well I loaded this up. I'll keep the dock hiding off. Okay, we'll let that run and see how long it takes. I don't know. Okay, let me see. Catch up on chat. Someone's asking me about Bootcamp. I covered this in my news video a few days ago, Lorenzo. Bootcamp ain't coming back. Just because you can download an ARM ISO, it's probably for other ARM chip devices that are running Windows 11 ARM, like the Copilot PCs. Nothing to do with, you know, installing Windows on a Mac. It ain't happening until someone writes the drivers. I've had a lot of comments saying, like, who is responsible for making Bootcamp drivers? Apple say it's Microsoft. Some people say that Apple should be making them because they made the Windows x86 64-bit drivers. I don't know. Okay, so okay, I quit too fast. I'm waiting for this Steam to come up. Maybe you can launch Steam inside the bottle program files. Maybe this cross. Okay. Yeah, Whisky cannot run everything. CrossOver can. Just Scroll back in the video, you'll see an image where I discussed it with Dean or Jason X. What else? I got. Can I try the Monster Hunter Open Beta? I don't think that's working. I've read someone report that it's not working on a Mac. Good to know. Good to know. Okay. So how long should I wait for this to come up? I'm not familiar with this. I think there's a learning curve to this. Like how many minutes? 5 minutes? It's already been. Shall I restart my computer? I could restart, to be honest. Wait for some time. Stop clicking on it, killing it. Okay. How long is some time, Andy Nath? Okay, I'll give it until 10. Give it till 10:05. Ooh, see me there. I'll give it to 10:05. That's 2 minutes. Apple has the EFI, all the software to boot macOS on Apple Mac Silicon, so they're responsible for boot camp. About 5 minutes. Okay, I'll wait until 10:08 then for this, whatever this is doing. Apple has the EFI. Okay, yeah. Well, Apple have said that Microsoft responsible for making. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to restart my Mac. Okay, because I haven't restarted for a while, to be honest. Though, let's just kill everything and then just I'll restart my Mac because I haven't restarted for a bit, and then I'll launch it again. Sometimes that helps. Anyway, Apple have said, like Fred Federighi said that basically it's in Microsoft's camp. I don't really know who to believe. Onion Peeler, have I got an experience using VMware Fusion? Yes, I've done a lot of videos about VMware Fusion gaming on a Mac. I think one of the big advantages of having a streaming computer and then having the Mac as a streaming through HDMI is just I can just restart whenever I want. So you've already got, so Edgar's already has a 7800 XT CPU, but you still want a game on a Mac. You're like a masochist. Okay, let's go. Whisky. Okay, Steam. Okay, so 10:05. Let's wait till 10:08 or 10:09 to see what's happening. I'm gonna stop clicking. I'm not gonna do anything now. It's a cold reboot. I've clicked on Run Steam, not clicking on anything for a few minutes. Okay. It takes 45 seconds to 1 minute max to load on my MacBook Pro M2 Max with 96 gigabytes of RAM. What are you using that for? Abiba Remham says, what are your thoughts on the new Macs? I'm quite excited about trying them out, but from the graphs that I've looked at, they've said 1.2x GPU power. So that's a lot, 20%, but it's also not a lot, like not enough to really get excited about. You know, if my game runs at 60 frames per second, now it can go at 72 frames per second. It doesn't really excite me that much in a sense. It's exciting to try, and it's exciting for content to see what the shiny new thing does, but the M4 chip doesn't really bring much difference. I mean, even the M3 chip was just, these are all annual upgrades, you know. Is VMware Fusion better than Parallels or pretty much the same? It's Parallels is way better than VMware Fusion, like far better in every way. It's just the worst thing about it is that it costs money. I have a new 15% off coupon, so I'll share that at some point. But I have an evergreen coupon for the very first time from the Parallels team. They really want me to make more videos about Parallels, but from an honest opinion, Parallels is just far better and smoother to use. It's much more stable, and it's user friendly in a way that VMware isn't. VMware is like impossible to find on the website to download. Ever since the company got bought out by Broadcom, it's basically very difficult to actually find find Mac to find the download link in the first place, and the software itself is very underbaked. There's lots of things which feature many features that Parallels has, like the kind of integration with the Mac OS host, like coherence mode, the way that folders are shared. It's far behind, but it is a free alternative. It does support GPU acceleration. If you can live with that and not paying, now Parallels is a true subscription. So if you are not subscribed after a year, then you cannot open your virtual machine anymore. And so this makes it like it's nearly double the price of CrossOver. And if we're comparing Parallels and CrossOver, CrossOver is far better value, and it can also play DirectX 12 games. Parallels is limited to DirectX 11, as is VMware Fusion. So that's my take on it. I'll make a new video about it in the future. I use those 96 gigabytes for 4K video editing of big projects. Okay, that's interesting. There's I'm about to put together a PC. I bought all the parts for a PC. I just need to put it together. I bought 128 gigabytes of RAM for it for a new video editing computer. So I'm really excited about putting that together once I have time. I'm excited about building a PC, but I also really don't want to do it as well, because I have a perfectly good PC that I'm using to stream on now and play games on and video edit. But having the time to put together another computer, I know it's going to take me like an hour or two. It can't take that long to put together a new computer. I've got a new GPU, got a new blah blah blah, but I've got too much stuff going on, too many Macs to deal with. So I will do it at some point. It's crazy to think that the full M4 Max die almost has the same number of GPU cores as the M48 core M1 Ultra GPU. Yes, the 48 core is the low end one. I think the higher one has 60 cores, but yeah, it's going to perform better. And it also doesn't have the M1 Ultra also had loads of issues running several games too. It just didn't work. Or games like Cyberpunk 2077. So I remember Linus doing a video on the M1 Ultra and it didn't perform well. It was going about 10 FPS. It was terrible. Are you ditching the Mac for editing? Yes. I like the Mac for editing, but I think the Macs are too limited in storage, right? So, and capture. So a PC, for my needs anyway, so I'm streaming from a PC at the moment. It's easier to build in the things that I need. So I need capture cards. Right, I need to put in at least one internal capture card, like a 4K capture card, like an Elgato 4K 60 or 120 hertz. I need hard drives, right? I want a silent computer with big fans and lots of airflow. I want loads of USB ports, like 20 USB ports, right? I want multiple HDMI outs, multiple video outs. Because like on my computer now, I'm using like 3 monitors, right? I mean, Macs basically don't support 3 monitor outputs. At the moment, you need to use M4 generation to do that. It's PC is just way more flexible. I can test out Windows games, make sure that what issues are and aren't working, and I can put in like 10 hard drives if I want to. A PC is, I think, if you invest the time into it, it's much more flexible than a Mac. I can upgrade the GPU if I want to. It's a good machine, I think. But in terms of like portable computers, I think like the Mac is far better. Like the Mac itself, right, is like a far better machine for portability. Like I hate Windows laptops. I hate the bloat that you get with Windows computers. In a Mac, in a portable device, I don't care about upgradability. What I care about is the pure integration between the software and the hardware, which macOS delivers, and which I really like. So that's why it's more important for me to have portable devices as Apple devices. Amazing battery and good integration and good and really good backup systems. Like I don't know, it's underrated, but I really like Time Machine as a backup system. Much better than the Windows alternatives. Okay, so I've waited 7 minutes for Steam to open up. So what has gone wrong here? Okay, 7 minutes. Double click the Steam icon. Hi, Tim Kivers. Thanks for joining us. I'm sorry that your Sea of Thieves patch no longer works through CrossOver due to easy anti-cheat. It really sucks. Okay. This is not a good Whisky comparison video if I can't get Whisky to work. Let's nuke the bottle and start again. Let's call this Windows. Okay, someone said drag and drop instead of thing. Like, that's going to make a difference. Let's see. Oh, the bottle's still being made. Normally takes no more than 30 seconds. Okay. Someone said drag and drop. Pin program, install programs. Let's have a look. Let's do it again. Okay, this is working now. Yeah, I can't actually remember what my PC specs were. I bought a lot of the parts when I was in Taiwan because it was a lot cheaper. They only have 5% sales tax in Taiwan. Screen mirroring is enabled. Is that going to mess me up a little bit? Because does Whisky not support screen mirroring? Okay, so that's gone. I'm going to quit Whisky and then open it again. And we have Steam here. Let's run. Then an icon should appear here. That Mountain Dew, no, it is Pepsi Max. And I'm drinking, I'm addicted. The thing I hate about M series chip is you can't have a high-end GPU core count without also buying high CPU core count. I want the GPU core count of Ultra Silicon on Max. Yeah, I guess so. Okay, I'm just gonna see here. Okay. Okay, I'm having an issue which I need to deal with this house purchase. And because it's a massive chain, oh God, I've got to do something. I need to go and sort something out with my conveyancing solicitor right now. So I'm afraid that this is going to have to turn into part 2. So if somebody can tell me what is wrong with the Whisky installation, then okay, let's do this. I think I'll have to go in a minute. Just going to figure out what I'm going to do. I want to have to turn this into a part 2 stream at some point. And I think what I'll do, let me just see. Okay, I need to do this right now. Okay. I need to go sort out an issue with my house purchase, which involves me going to my solicitors. And in that case, it means I'm going to be ending the stream now. In the very near future, maybe even later today, maybe, I'm going to follow up with this, right? Because I actually need footage of Whisky working. I really want this working. And I wonder why. Yeah, screen mirroring. Okay. Let's just try this without screen mirroring, and then I need to go. So how do I turn off screen mirroring without actually killing my... Yeah, I need to go... Why would screen mirroring kill a thing? I remember this was an issue with the original version of Game Porting Toolkit that had an issue with this. So I need to so I mirror to my to here. I think what I'll do is I'll stop mirroring so you won't be able to see anything. And then it's extending. So if can I turn this off? Oh, is it loading now? That's why. It's because of screen mirroring. So I stop screen mirroring and the Steam comes up anyway. Okay, thank you. That means that if I screen mirror again, does that mean it will work? Oh, it just crashes Steam. Okay, that's not good. If I stop mirroring. Okay, good. Anyway, thank you guys for doing all of the technical work. I need to go deal with a little bit of an issue now. I'll be following this up with a second stream in the future. Hopefully I'm going to be scheduling that in the future. I've got a house to go sort out. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.